Hey everyone, it's Zeep, and, well, it's time to talk about lost characters again. I'm trying to spread these out a little more, but over the past 2 months, I found a couple lost characters that I'd really love to tell you guys about. This includes Geno from Super Mario RPG, Pepsiman, oh, and don't get me started on the 1970s ARG puppet who has quote-unquote become lost media. All of this and more in today's exciting installment of Lost Characters. I'm Zeepsterd, subscribe, we're steadily growing as a channel, I love all of you guys, let's get this to 5,000 likes if you want a sequel to this, here we go. Geno. You know, when I was a kid, I was super into the Mario RPGs. The Mario and Luigi games, the Paper Mario games, but one I was especially interested in was Super Mario RPG. Released in 1996, it blew my mind that a game like this could exist back then. And up to that period in 1996, it really redefined what the plotline for a Mario game could actually be. Before, we had a simple plot of the princess being stolen by Bowser, to a story about a giant sword with a face crashing into a castle and hell-bent on world domination. With the capability of even using Bowser and Peach to fight alongside Mario, in battle mechanics, once exclusive to, say, Final Fantasy. I mean, this game was of course developed by Square, which would eventually become Square Enix, so it's no wonder that the gameplay itself would be something you would find in, say, a Final Fantasy game. Not only that, but Mario RPG also had 3D graphics, unlike any real Mario game we had seen before, as this came out months before Super Mario 64. I experienced this game as a kid in 2009. By then, I already had Super Mario Galaxy, but that didn't mean the novelty of it rubbed off. I even kept this in mind. Mario in an RPG setting? I wonder what everyone thought back then. In reality, Mario RPG was the product of Final Fantasy games that didn't sell too well in the West. You see, at the time, Western markets simply didn't care about role-playing games. In order to save this market, Square went to Nintendo to develop Super Mario RPG, The Legend of the Seven Stars. The game was a massive success, with all sorts of wacky characters that fit the Mushroom Kingdom world. I mean, just look at Boshi, isn't he awesome? He's like Yoshi with sunglasses. You have Bellum, who's this like giant dog cat monster. I think he's kind of like underrated if I'm being honest. He just looks like really dorky, but I love that about him. But no other character in the entirety of Super Mario RPG is more iconic than Geno. As stated in the game, Geno is a warrior from Star Road, who was sent by a higher authority to restore peace to Mario's world. In the game, there's a place called Rose Town, where Mario and the gang meets up with a little boy. The boy is playing with a pair of dolls, toys modeled after Mario, Princess Toadstool, Bowser, and another bizarre doll. Suddenly at nighttime, a star comes down from the skies to possess this doll. The doll's name is Geno. The next morning, the little boy tells to his mom that he saw Geno walking into the forest maze nearby Rose Town. Mario, on a quest to find this animated doll, stumbles upon Geno challenging the ruler of the forest, Bowyer, to retrieve a star piece needed to restore the Mushroom Kingdom and save the world. In terms of Mario RPGs, the chasing of Geno through the forest maze is one of the most iconic scenes in all of Mario history, coinciding with an excellent song in the background that makes it even more memorable. So memorable that over 10 years ago, Mario fans made a rap and animation detailing this scene from the game, and it's actually pretty cool. It's one of my earliest memories of the internet, and really tells about how confusing the forest maze was. Seriously, I spent a lot of time in that when I was a kid, and so did many others. Geno is a magical, sage-like figure who is confident and offers wise advice to Mario and crew. Throughout the RPG, he constantly worries about the ownership of his body, that being the doll, and swearing to return it back home to its original owner after the adventure is done. What made Geno so popular in the first place was his character design. I mean, look how slick it looks, it's cool. And also the mystery surrounding him. Who exactly sentenced him down here? Who knows? As mentioned prior, his real name isn't even Geno. He just takes up the name because that's the name of the doll. His full name can't even be pronounced according to him. If you want to know what it's like written, it's a heart emote, followed by a musical symbol, exclamation point, and then a question mark. He is one of the most mysterious and popular Mario characters of all time, but even crazier is that after the release of Super Mario RPG, Geno's appearances have been very sparse throughout the Mario series. His only other appearance in a Mario game is in Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, released in 2003, and where he makes a cameo for a minigame. In the remake of Superstar Saga, he doesn't appear at all. When it came to Super Smash Bros., however, a lot of people wanted Geno to be a playable character in the games. For Super Smash Bros. Brawl, it was often rumored, and even faked, that Geno would appear in the game as a secret character. And that never came to be. Same thing would happen for Super Smash Bros. 4. There was Geno representation, just not in the way that many people wanted it to be. There was the ability to have a Geno costume for the Mii Gunner character, which had a lot of Geno fans extremely upset. Finally, for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch, Sakurai made it his mission to add characters whom the fans were dying for, such as Ridley, Banjo-Kazooie, Sora from Kingdom Hearts. We even got Steve from Minecraft. People thought Geno was going to appear in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And guess what? He does, but yet again, not in the way fans wanted him to appear in. Once again as a Mii Gunner costume, and he also appears as a spirit in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is basically just like a JPEG image of his original Super Mario RPG model. So what gives? Why no Geno in more Mario games? Well, Geno is owned by Square. In reality, if they really wanted to, Nintendo could just ask Square and use Geno again in a game. It's just that hasn't really happened, and the reasoning for that is, well, there really is no reason to. In the 27 years since Super Mario RPG has been released, Geno has made a lasting impact unlike any other Nintendo character that has come to pass. To keep it simple, Geno's purpose as a character is fully developed in Super Mario RPG. There's literally nothing else. By the end of the game, Geno does his job of saving the entire world and leaves the doll form of his body and ascends back to the skies. In reality, and although some people might get upset over this, Geno doesn't really need to appear in another Mario game. And that's okay. Sometimes lost characters don't need to come back if their story is just finished. After the adventure is over in Super Mario RPG, Geno bids farewell to Mario and crew, returning to become a star. In the ending credits, Geno causes the words, "The End," to appear on the screen. And I think that's suitable. With Geno's story, it truly came to an end 27 years ago. Miss Sara Bellum. So, the Powerpuff Girls. You know, when I was a kid, me and my brothers loved the show. The theme song was really kick-ass, the show itself was super cool. Created by Craig McCracken, it was one of Cartoon Network's biggest shows of all time. I think what made Powerpuff Girls so special to me and my brothers as kids is that it really defied gender norms. You know, when you're a kid, you see some things as like girly and some things are like boyish. But with Powerpuff Girls, that didn't really matter. It was just a fun show of a bunch of kids beating up these large monsters. The premise is simple. 3 kindergarten-aged girls with various superpowers defend the citizens of the town from apes, crab villains, and an asshole named Ace, who would eventually appear as a band member for the Gorillas. As most of you may know, the Powerpuff Girls were created by their father, Professor Otonium, who is one of my favorite characters in all of TV.
Girls, wake up! Girls, wake up! Buzz, 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 buzz!
Bonus characters include the mayor of the townsfolk, but most importantly, for us, we have Miss Sara Bellum, the deputy and brains of the mayor's operations. Bellum serves as a role model for the Powerpuff Girls, as a woman who handles things that the mayor just can't do, with her face never really being revealed, except for very, very rare instances in the show. She's a tall redhead who has the ability to also be a fighter whenever needed to do so. Part of the humor of Bellum's character is that the mayor heavily relies on her, even breaking down when she isn't around anymore. In the Powerpuff Girls reboot, released in 2016, Bellum makes no appearances except for one episode, titled Bye Bye Bellum, in which it is revealed why she is no longer there.
By working as your assistant every day for the past 12 years, I have accumulated over 1,000 vacation days that I'm required to use on a 1,000-day vacation. I couldn't bear to tell you face to face. Goodbye, Mayor.
So there we have an in-canon reason of why she no longer appears. But the real-life reason why she doesn't appear is a little more complicated, and according to fans, it unfortunately has to do with their character design. You see, the creators of the Powerpuff Girls reboot stated that we felt like Miss Bellum wasn't quite indicative of the kind of messaging we wanted to be giving out at this time, so we sort of had her move on, and that was a good choice, I think, on our part. The problem a lot of fans have here with this quote is that what type of messaging was the Powerpuff Girls reboot really trying to give? To those who don't remember, the reboot was deeply unpopular. Not only was it incredibly unfunny, it was also kind of uncomfortable. There's even a scene where the Powerpuff Girls twerk. It's weird. Not only that, but in the show itself, Blossom has a relationship with a man that looks like one of the head writers, which he was justifiably called out for. I mean, sure, it's like a dream sequence in the show, but that really doesn't excuse how disgusting this scene is. Fans believe the quote, given by the writers of the reboot, to be completely disingenuous. It suggests that Bellum was too inappropriate for modern audiences. I mean, sure, in the original show, she was seen to be very seductive, but her character did not stop at just that. She was a much more nuanced, more complicated character. As stated before, she was a role model for the girls. They removed Bellum because of her body and her voice, but yet it was still okay for the writers to attach their head next to a kindergartner. Honestly, to many fans, when it comes to Bellum's appearance in the show, it probably is a saving grace that she didn't even really appear in it too much. They didn't really want her to be soiled, as other characters were, due to this reboot. Personally, I'd have to agree, because her appearance in the original show, it's so much better than what it could have been. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor for this video, Morgan & Morgan. You know, back when I was a kid, me and my family faced a car accident that wasn't our fault, and didn't have the knowledge of how to hire a lawyer. If we had Morgan & Morgan back then, things would have become so much easier. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm that has over 100 offices nationwide and more than 800 lawyers at the ready. With over $15 billion recovered for clients, Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get your full and fair compensation. It's so easy to submit an injury claim to Morgan & Morgan, it's really like using an app instead of hiring a lawyer. Like ordering takeout, you can submit a claim from your couch in 8 clicks or less. If you're ever injured in an accident, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Once again, it's so easy, you can submit a claim in 8 clicks or less without having to leave your couch. For more information, go to forthepeople.com/Zeepstered or dial #law #529 from your cell phone. Thanks to Morgan & Morgan for this paid advertisement. Pepsiman. So back in the 1980s, various companies made video games to advertise their said products. This was most notably done on the Nintendo Entertainment System. What with a McDonald's game, a Noid game, marketing was rampant on this, but it started to slow down more in the 1990s. So it's bizarre to me that on March 4th, 1999, a game titled Pepsiman came out. Based off the Japanese mascot for Pepsi, Pepsiman. Pepsiman is a product of the late 1990s. I mean, just look at him. He looks very Y2K. In his commercials, he could do it all. He runs really fast, he surfs, he turns things magically into Pepsi, and is a little creepy. Pepsiman's commercials ran from 1996 to 2003, created to be an American superhero from a Japanese perspective. By that I mean a lot of these commercials would take place in America, and would have Americans in it, but would advertise Pepsi in fully Japanese. There's an ad that takes place in New York, there's another one which takes place in an American Burger King, completely in English.
Sorry, sold out of Pepsi.
Pepsiman's first video game appearance was for Fighter Vipers in 1996 on the Sega Saturn, but only in Japan. The only way you could unlock him is if you lost the first fight in the game. And this is actually kind of suitable if you know Pepsiman's character. In his commercials, he sometimes is a bit of a schmuck and hits his head on things, and every now and then even loses. There was even a Japanese exclusive arcade game where you play rock, paper, scissors with Pepsiman, and honestly, I really want to play this. I want to play rock, paper, scissors with Pepsiman. Eventually, in 1999, Pepsiman released on the PlayStation 1, with the cover for the game exclaiming, "To drink." For more background information, apparently Pepsiman used to be a scientist who transformed into a superhero after coming into contact and, I'm quoting here, the Holy Pepsi. What makes it even more bizarre is that the game has these various cutscenes in between gameplay of this guy who is obsessed with Pepsi and acts as insane as possible.
Everybody Pepsi! Drink Pepsi!
Pepsi. Only my choice.
His entire house is covered with Pepsi cans. The game even begins with a cutscene of him drinking Pepsi and then looking into the can, followed by the very first level of the game. When the game first came out, it was met with mixed reviews. Reviewers compared it to a simplified Crash Bandicoot, as Pepsiman runs in one direction, avoiding obstacles such as cars, people, and other suburban things. As I shift through gameplay footage, it's bizarre to me, because every other mascot, tries to be like cool, trying to get you to eat their product, right? But Pepsiman is kind of just weak, and I guess that's like the charm of him, because he's supposed to be a superhero, but he's not that cool. And yeah, that is unique. I mean, it was funny enough in Japan, and it was like a smash hit over there. I mean, enough for a video game to be made about him. Here's something not a lot of people know, however. Before there was a Pepsiman, there was another Pepsiman who was a completely different type of character. An exclusive in Mexico, he was also a superhero who was extremely buff.
Soy Pepsiman, la figura del momento, soy radical y con Pepsi complemento.
Little do people also know that Pepsiman can actually talk. I don't know what he's saying here, but that American accent is thick.
今ペプシコーラから big chance この絞りコルベットが当たります
There's also various other Pepsi characters, such as Pepsi Twist and Pepsi Woman. Pepsi Man was Pepsi's answer to a Coca-Cola dominated Japan in the mid-1990s. Although he was dorky, he was endearing. He was funny and self-deprecating. And really, that's all Pepsi needed for a marketing ad that never really needed to treat itself so seriously. Expanding from Japan, Pepsi Man went to places such as Latin America, even the Middle East. He was popular everywhere except the United States. Ironic, right? Especially when you get far-out ads like these with Americans speaking Japanese.
はい今このペプシコーラにラッキーウィンドウがついてるよペプシを飲んで覗いてみよう当たりが出たら Pepsiman Big Bottle Cap Present.
Eventually, like all other campaigns, the Pepsi Man campaign lost steam, but in recent years he's become more of a meme, a cultural icon in a way, a product of the late 90s to early 2000s. He has gone beyond his video game and has etched it alongside the greats such as Chester Cheetah or even the Noid. Pepsi Man is by all means for all of time. Wally Darling. You know, here on Lost Characters, we cover all sorts of figures. Ones who are obviously fake, ones who have been lost for years, and ones who have been invented for a particular story on a show that has been quote-unquote lost. The show I'm referring to is called Welcome Home, an ARG which was quote-unquote released on October 11th, 1969. In an alternate universe, the show was created by a guy named Ronald Durlane. The show was basically this universe's Sesame Street. It was incredibly popular, dominating its Saturday morning time slot with its colorful cast of puppets, entertaining and addictive stories, and lively sets unlike anything seen before. A spectacle for all ages. Although it was a smash hit, by 1974 the show was pulled from television, with the parent company behind the show, Playfellow, falling silent. All the footage for the show has been lost, including everything surrounding it. The merchandise, the ads, the books, completely wiped from this universe. The Welcome Home Restoration Project is a website that tries its best to collect any lost data about the show. There it's been discovered that home was the neighborhood place between all these characters, with various descriptions about each single puppet and where they originated from. A character like Eddie originated from a distant town and came to home to establish a post office at the neighborhood. Someone like Julie was a rainbow monster that came from deep within the forest that surrounded the outskirts of home. However, for the section of this video, we have the main character, Wally, who has no real origin. Without an exact origin point, it can be assumed that Wally was born at home. He's been living there his entire life. In fact, most of the other characters who are in Welcome Home were born either in the outskirts of home or were sentenced there by some other force. For example, the character Howdy was said to have originated from an apple core in a tree alongside all his brothers and sisters. Someone like Sally fell from above as a shooting star. Something else you guys need to know before we go any further is that there are weird display issues on the website surrounding text, and even when you highlight paragraphs, you get a message such as, "but it hurts," or "does it hurt?" This all goes down to our main suspect, Wally, the center of the entire show. As described on the website, he is the main character. Each episode focuses around him. Hell, even on the map, he is the center point of everything. He is in almost all the merchandise, and even on his page, it's a little egotistical, isn't it? Almost as if he wrote it by himself. Reading, "Wally Darling is the friendliest neighbor in Welcome Home. Perhaps even the best painter too. With a smile like his, it's hard to disagree. Always eager to make new friends and show them around the neighborhood. Wally is happy to lend a helping hand, but you knew that already, didn't you?" I mean, he's a very special character. If you even click on his profile, his exit button reads goodbye in all black compared to everyone else's, which says go back in all color. On the guest book page for the website, you can even find hidden messages from Wally, with one saying you won't write back, and the other one saying you're looking for me. Silly, silly. Wally is special. He keeps making eye contact with the audience member. In fact, the website really wants you to look at his eyes. If you look at the links page, there's a segment where it flashes through all the characters, but when it comes to Wally, he has a notable more amount of time in the GIF compared to everyone else, staring at you with those eyes. If you zoom out far enough on the map, you'll find a deep spiraling hole, and if you click on it, you're greeted with a disturbing image of Wally's home all bloodied with an eye staring right in. Wally is the master of this entire neighborhood. And he still is. I can't say the same about all his friends, however, because if you look at all their descriptions, it's all in the past tense. For example, for Frank, it says Frank was. For Sally, it said Sally was. However, for Wally, it says Wally is the most prominent character. Everyone else surrounding the town, they're gone. Either they disappeared or they might be dead. However, for Wally, he's lonely. And you want to know how I know this? Well, if you click on Your in the Welcome Home title screen, you get a message. You actually get a character from a lost character from this show. And this lost character is unique out of all of them. They're best friends with Wally. You may be surprised who this lost character is because, well, it's you. Jynx. Racism. It sucks. But despite popular belief, the original design for the Pokemon Jynx isn't actually racist. Yes, people look at the original design and see a black face, big lips, and automatically assume the worst. And I don't blame them. That's like a direct reference to the blatantly racist cartoon caricatures of African Americans in the 1800s to 1900s. Back in the 1990s, African American author and critic Kara Boston Weatherford called out Jynx's character design and compared it to the story of the Little Black Sambo, released in 1899. With its original illustrations being incredibly controversial as it displays a child completely black and with red lips. After Jynx was criticized, her skin color changed from black to purple, and her appearances in the anime became infrequent to none at all after 2006, with her last anime appearance being in the episode 3 Jynx and a Baby. For the past 17 years, Jynx has not appeared in the anime to avoid controversy. However, to fans of this Pokemon, Jynx's appearance is not so cut and dry. You see, if you know anything about Pokemon, a lot of them are based off something cultural, whether it be Japanese mythology, a refrigerator, or even a lamp. Pokemon are based off of many things. To those who have researched Jynx, they may be able to pinpoint its origins on the Yama-Uba, a supernatural being with long blonde hair who is wretched and disturbing. In the Japanese mythology, the Yama-Uba is a fan of dancing. This goes hand in hand with the Pokédex entries for Jynx, which often reference that the Pokemon loves to dance. It speaks a language similar to that of humans, however it seems to use dancing to communicate. Not only that, but Jynx is also an ice type of Pokemon. The Yama-Uba had the ability to cover the mountains with snow. But sure, now we know that Jynx is based off of the Yama-Uba. But what about the blackface that appears in her original design? Well, this can be based on the Yamanba girls, whom themselves are based off a mid-1990s trend called the Ganguro, and where girls would tan themselves very dark, have blonde bright hair, with contrasting makeup all over their face. In my mind, I believe me and so many others have provided enough evidence to declare that Jynx was never racist. Sure, a bizarre looking Pokemon indeed, I can agree on that, but she's really a descendant from Japanese folklore. And that itself is pretty cool. Like this video, subscribe, I love all of you guys, and to the next one, see ya.